I saw this story dealing with Marla Gibbs. Who played Florence Johnston on The Jeffersons, okay? And she was Mary Jenkins on 227. I saw this article from AtlantaBlackStar.com, and I posted it on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, when this article came in. And this article came out November 3rd, so it was before the midterm elections when I posted it. It got thousands of likes on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. I also posted it in the World Facebook group that I'm in. I posted it there as well, okay? Because I'm a big fan. Everybody, people that know me, they know I'm a big fan of the TV show A Different World. That show is such a powerful show. And it came on when I was in high school and then in college. So, that show changed a lot of our lives and inspired many of us to want to go to college or do better in college. That show was just transformational. But Marla Gibbs, who played the maid Florence Johnston, the Jeffersons' maid, for 10 seasons on the CBS show, The Jeffersons. She was interviewed by Sherry Shepherd, okay, on Sherry Shepherd's new talk show, daytime talk show. And Marla Gibbs revealed that the producers of the show 227, which aired on NBC, wanted her to be a single mother raising a daughter. They did not want her to be married. And Marla Gibbs said that she said she told them, I will not do the show man. I will not do the show without a man. And she explained how she had to fight to portray a married African-American family. And she fought to have an African-American husband on that show. And I liked the show 227. I watched the reruns on Hulu. It was a really good show. I think it was better before Jackie Harry left. She also talks about how she fought to have Jackie Harry on the show play Sandra as well. Okay, so this is a fascinating story here. The legendary Marla Gibbs, who I think is underrated. She's 9 years old. She just got her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I think Marla Gibbs is still underrated. Okay, but the legendary Marla Gibbs appeared on the Sherry Shepherd show, where she received praise for her beauty and groundbreaking career in entertainment. Now, the actress, best known for playing housekeeper Florence Johnston, now they misspelled her name, her character's name is not Florence Johnson, it's Johnston with a T. Okay, but we forgive AtlantaBlackStar.com. They do some good reporting. The actress best known for playing housekeeper Florence Johnston on the beloved sitcom The Jeffersons also played Mary Jenkins on 227. She was recently cast in season 19 of Grey's Anatomy. Grey's Anatomy is still on the air. And the Snoop Dogg produced film Bromates. The Snoop Dogg produced film Bromates. Now, Sherry Shepherd was present when Marla Gibbs received her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in July 2021. And Marla Gibbs said, "Oh, it was so fabulous." Gibbs said of her, "A big day. I never expected it. That was all Regina's idea," referring to Regina King, okay, who played her daughter Brenda Jenkins on the show 227. Here's a picture of Marla Gibbs here, 91 years old. Now, Marla Gibbs was also on the episode of at least one episode of the TV show A Different World, she played the principal at the school that Whitley was a substitute teacher at. If you remember in season 6, she played the principal of the inner city school. Okay. They also had an episode in season 6 with Billy D. Williams on as well. Okay. And we know that Billy D. Williams had a cameo on the Jeffersons, and Florence Johnston was Billy D. Williams' biggest fan, right? Okay, so Sherry Shepherd clarified that fellow star Regina King was responsible for getting everyone on board with getting Marla Gibbs a Hollywood star. She said, quote, "They turned us down the first year," said Marla Gibbs, who feels much younger than she is. She said, "I think somebody got that wrong. I'm 30. I'm 30 years old," said the woman who jokingly turns that age every year. Turns 30 every year. It sounds like Jack Benny turned 39 every year. So Sherry Shepherd reminded the audience that Marla Gibbs brought the idea of the show 227 to Jefferson's creator, Norman Lear. It was Marla Gibbs who brought the idea of the show 227 to Jefferson's creator, Norman Lear. And Norman Lear was the developer of the TV show Good Times, which is created by Eric Monty and Mike Evans, or Michael Evans. And Michael Evans was the first Lionel on the Jeffersons. And Eric Monty and Michael Evans were writing partners. And when you watch the Good Times at the end of Good Times, when they show the credits, every episode, it says created by Eric Monty and Mike Evans. And the character of Michael Evans, the youngest son, is named after Mike Evans, co-creator of Good Times, who was the first Lionel on the Jeffersons. Now, Marla Gibbs then revealed that the show 227 was initially a play that ran for 6 months, and she starred in the play as Mary Jenkins. It was seen by Brandon Tartikoff, who was the president of NBC from 1981 to 1991. I remember when Brandon Tartikoff was the president of NBC. And when The Cosby Show came out in 1984, NBC moved from last place to first place. They had The Cosby Show, then they had Family Ties, they had Cheers, they had Golden Girls, 227, Miami Vice, but The Cosby Show, that show was so phenomenal. It took NBC from last place to first place. You just had 3 networks then, okay? NBC, ABC, CBS. Marla Gibbs said, so when Norman Lear finally came to see it, which I had invited him, but then he heard about it, he said, I hear you have a good play. I said, yeah. He said, well, I want to see it. I said, well, you better come tomorrow because we're closing. Okay. Now, I don't know if she ended the sentence by saying child. Okay. Because we're closing child. Because on the TV show 227, oh my God, I haven't heard so many honeys and childs since, probably maybe when I was in Mississippi when I was 6 years old or something like that. I don't know what. That show has like a down home Southern feel to it with Helen Martin playing Pearl Shea, the veteran actress Helen Martin, who was Weeping Wanda on Good Times. And you have Elena Reed Hall, who was Susan on Sesame Street, who was Gordon's younger sister, Susan on Sesame Street, Elena Reed Hall. Now, due to their first and legendary series, Norman Lear offered, the Jeffersons, Norman Lear offered to also produce 227 with Marla Gibbs. So Marla Gibbs said, so I said, okay, that's home. I'm already doing the Jeffersons. But check this out. Now, this is the same thing that Norman Lear and the white people who controlled Good Times did to Esther Rolle. I'm gonna give you some background history on this. Marla Gibbs said, but then when I got it, the script and all that stuff, what they put together, Norman Lear had two other producers who were also African Americans, but they did not agree with anything I wanted to do. Now, she's the one who came up with the idea of 227 based upon the play that she was starring in. Okay? The 227 play. She's the one that comes up with the idea of the TV show. She said, Marla Gibbs said, when they wanted her character, Mary Jenkins, to portray a single woman, to which Marla Gibbs replied, I will not do the show without a man. I will not do the show without a man. Now, in the play 227, she had a husband in the play. For those who watched 227, Marla Gibbs' character was married to Lester Jenkins, portrayed by Hal Williams, African-American actor Hal Williams, who also played Lester Jenkins in the play. So you go from a play to a TV show. She has a black husband in the play. But Norman Lear, you want her to be a single mother raising a black child. You want to cut the black man out like you did John Amos when you fired John Amos at the end of season 3 of Good Times because you didn't like the portrayal of a strong black father. You wanted a buck dancing Negro like JJ. You didn't like the portrayal of a strong black father, Norman Lear. Their chemistry was already established between Marla Gibbs and Hal Williams, which made it easier to add lines and transform them into a series. The chemistry they had in the play made it easier to transform this into a TV series. Marla Gibbs had to fight for Hal Williams the same way she fought for actress Jackie Harry, who played Sandra Clark on the TV show 227. Now, Marla Gibbs used what power she had. And it may have been a little bit of power because we knew her from the Jeffersons, but she didn't star in the Jeffersons, right? She was the co-star. Sherman Hemsley, Isabel Sanford, they starred in the Jeffersons. The Jeffersons is a spinoff from All in the Family, okay? The Jeffersons is a spinoff from All in the Family. So Marla Gibbs used what power she did have in Hollywood to fight for these roles for African-American actors and actresses. She fought for Hal Williams because she wanted to portray, and remember on the Jeffersons, she was a single woman on the Jeffersons. She would date here and there, but she really didn't have a love life on the Jeffersons. And she wanted to portray a married black family. So she had to fight for this. So there was a tweet in the article here from Jamie A. Thompson, PhD. Next to Abbott Elementary, I love 80s episodes of 227 with Marla Gibbs, Jackie Harry, Hal Williams, and the young Regina King. It's bringing so much realness. Okay. What did you use to put on that perfume, a spray gun? The interactions between, they were friends in real life, Marla Gibbs and Jackie Harry. Okay. But the interactions between them on the show was classic. Okay. It's similar to Red Fox and LaWanda Page, Aunt Esther, who were actually friends in real life. It's similar to that. Okay. So Marla Gibbs said, I fought for him, referring to Hal Williams. I got him, and then Jack Hay came in, and she did an audition actually first for Rose Holloway, who was Mary Jenkins' best friend, who was played by Elena Reed Hall, who played Susan on Sesame Street. Okay, Gordon's younger sister, Susan. But then Jackie Harry asked if she could play Sandra, and we said yes. She did, and she was hysterical. Jackie Harry played that role, and Jackie Harry blew up from that character of Sandra Clark. So much so, I remember when Jackie Harry was a guest host of the Tonight Show, Johnny Carson's Tonight Show, before when Johnny Carson was still hosting the Tonight Show. Okay, she was a guest host. It was one of the times when he wasn't on the show, and she blew up from that role of Jackie Harry. She also won an Emmy Award for that role as well. Okay. And then she's going to end up leaving the show 227 to do movies. Things like that didn't work out too well for her. She should have stayed on that show. Because if you notice, as they go into like the third season, things like this, when you watch the opening credits, it'll say special guest Jackie Harry, because she only appeared a few times. I think maybe the third season, she only appeared a few times. And then she was largely just like written out of the script. They tried to give her a spinoff show. The spinoff show didn't work. One of the reasons why the spinoff show didn't work is because what they did, see, this is Hollywood once again, okay? The TV show 227 had character, and it focused on a working class African-American neighborhood where you had a black father, you had a married mother. Now, Rose Holloway, if I remember correctly, Rose had a daughter. If I remember correctly, her husband had passed away. But you still have a reference to marriage. Pearl Shea, played by Helen Martin. Pearl Shea had been married 3 times. Okay. And she's raising her grandson, Calvin. Okay. Calvin Dobbs. But you still have a reference to marriage, and you have this community. When Jackie Harry gets her, they did a pilot episode for the spinoff, which they show as one of the episodes of 227. She goes to New York, and the guy she's supposed to work for, it ends up that job falls through. She's desperate for money. She goes and gets a job working at a health spa, She's the only African-American character, except for one African-American guy who works at the health spa. All the other people are white. And she ended up not getting the show. They did a pilot. I don't think it tested well. But look at what they did. They built a loyal African-American audience, because we saw us and we saw this community, this black family and this black community. Then one of the stars of the show, you give them a spinoff and you drop her into a sea of white people. And you totally change the dynamics that drew us to watch 227 in the first place. When you do that, you also lock out a lot of African-American actors from opportunities, because you give those opportunities to white actors and actresses. So this is the game that they played. All right, now, in 1987, Jackie Harry became the first African-American woman to win an Emmy Award for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series for 227. Jackie was fantastic in this role, all right? But Marla Gibbs said NBC did not want her to have that role. NBC wanted Cheryl Lee Ralph to play Jackie Harry. And Marla Gibbs had to fight for Jackie Harry to get that role. She said, Marla Gibbs said, quote, "They wanted somebody else, but I said, I want her." Like Uncle Sam says, "I want you." She said, "I want her," because she's going to work. Marla Gibbs said Jack K is going to work. The other person I loved, but nobody would believe she lived in this building. Okay. She was just sophisticated, Marla Gibbs insists, but Jack K was hysterical. Now, Jack A. Harry's historic Emmy win paved the way for Cheryl Lee Ralph, who's a fantastic actress also. When we first saw Cheryl Lee Ralph in the Bill Cosby, Sidney Poitier movie, A Piece of the Action, okay? And she was one of the high school delinquents, okay? Cheryl Lee Ralph, brilliant, brilliant actress. Jack A. Harry's win for Best Supporting Actress in the Comedy Series, the Emmy win, paved the way for Cheryl Lee Ralph to win the same award in early this year in 2022 in September. As previously reported, Cheryl Lee Ralph won for her role as Miss Barbara Howard on the hit comedy series Abbott Elementary. Jack A. Harry praised Cheryl Lee Ralph for being the second woman to do so and creating a full circle moment. Jack A. Harry, who also starred in the TV show Sister to Sister with Tia and Tamara Mowry, and she co-starred opposite Tim Reed, veteran actress Tim Reed, who we probably first saw on the TV show WKRP in Cincinnati, okay? 1970s, 1980s TV show about the radio station WKRP in Cincinnati. And there's actually a WKRP in Cincinnati. It's Channel 5. It's a TV station. I don't know if they have a radio station, but they do have a TV station. Okay. So we first saw him as Venus Flytrap, the cool, hip DJ. Okay. That made me want to work at a radio station too. Seeing WKRP in Cincinnati, that made me want to work in a radio station. Okay. And I'm a DJ now. Well, I'm not a DJ. I'm a radio show host, not a DJ. Okay. But we saw him then, and then we saw him on the TV show Simon and Simon as Lieutenant Downtown Brown. Okay. And then he did Frank's Place as well. All right. But he's a brilliant, brilliant actor, very versatile. So he goes from playing a cool guy like Venus Flytrap to playing somebody that's kind of nerdy and conservative, Ray, I think his name was Ray, on 227, one of the parents of one of the twins. So winning my Emmy was a career highlight, but it was also a lonely experience, said Jack A. Harry. She tweeted this along with a photo of herself with the Emmy she won. She said, Jack A. Harry said, for 35 years, I've been the only Black woman to win Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series, but that all changes tonight. That all changes tonight. And it's a full circle. It comes full circle. Hashtag Emmys. Now, in a second tweet, the 66-year-old Jack A. Harry confirmed that NBC wanted Cheryl Lee Ralph to play Sandra Clark instead of her. She said, quote, the network originally wanted at the Cheryl Lee Ralph, her Twitter handle, at the Cheryl Lee Ralph to play Sandra on 227, but I got the part and won the Emmy. I got the part and won an Emmy for it. Now, Cheryl Lee Ralph joins me as the second Black woman in this category, and deservedly so. I'm so excited for her hashtag Emmys win. Okay. So that's a great, great story. But you have African-American actresses supporting one another, lifting one another up, fighting for roles for other people, using and you know the fact that Marla Gibbs was able to use what power she had in Hollywood to fight to have a Black man be her husband. That's fantastic. Now that's similar to what happened with on Good Times, okay, with Esther Rolle. Now, the TV show Good Times was a spinoff of All in the Family, right? And sorry, TV show Good Times was a spinoff of Maude. TV show Good Times was a spinoff of Maude. Maude was a spinoff of All in the Family. Maude was Edith Bunker's cousin, okay? And Maude was played by B. Arthur. And I like watching a lot of those old shows today because you get to see what was going on back then politically and in the culture. One thing that I think is really important to note, and I'm all for women equal rights. I don't want you to misunderstand that, right? I'm all for women having equal rights, especially African American women. But on the TV show Maude, Maude is a feminist, and she's on her fourth husband. The husband that you see her married to, that's her fourth husband, okay? Her daughter is either separated or divorced, one of them. Her daughter is separated or divorced and moves back home with her young male, her young son that she's raising. So now this is at a time like early 1970s. This is at a time when you had the women's liberation movement. I'm all for women having equal rights, equal pay, equal rights, all that stuff. I'm all for that. But it's just interesting that Maude is a feminist and she's on her fourth husband. And her daughter is either divorced or going through a divorce. And raising her son on her own, basically on her own also. So Florida Evans was Maude's maid. Okay. Florida Evans was Maude's maid, and she was married to a man named Henry Evans. Originally, it was played by a different actor, and then they brought in John Amos to play Henry Evans. So on the TV show Maude, John Amos, or Henry Evans, he was a firefighter. He was a fireman, right? The last episode that Esther Rolle appears as Florida Evans, they write into the storyline that John Amos' character, who was on the TV show Mary Tyler Moore, he was playing Woody, the sportscaster on Mary Tyler Moore. Okay, this is where we see him before. This is before Kunta Kinte. This is before Roots in 1977. Henry Evans gets a raise at work. He's a firefighter. He gets a raise at work. He's making more money, and he wants his wife to stop being a maid. So this is like the last episode where Florida Evans appears. Then, so she gets her spinoff show, Good Times, which is about her raising her family in the projects like the Cabrini Green projects. But the producers of the show and the developers of the show, like Norman Lear, they wanted her to be a single mother raising 3 children. But wait a second. She had a husband when she was a maid on Maude, a black man. She had a husband when she was a maid on Maude. You end her tenure on Maude with her husband getting a raise at work. So they're moving up economically, and he wants her to quit her job working for a white woman. But now that you give her her own show, you want to cut the black man out, Norman Lear. So Esther Rolle had to fight for Florida Evans to be married. Now, she was married when she was a maid working for the white woman. But now she gets her own show, and you want her to be a single mother. Norman Lear. So she fights, and they capitulate and let John Amos continue the role that he played on Maude. But they changed his name to James Evans. And then when they bring in his father's name is Henry Evans. But they had to have his father abandon his family, and they get reunited. Just whole screwed up stuff coming through the lens of white supremacy. Now, it's important to note, Eric Monte and Mike Evans, they were writing scripts and they were writing roles that defied stereotypes. This is why Eric Monte, who's the co-creator of Good Times, this is why he came to Hollywood. Okay, and Eric Monte also wrote the screenplay for Cooley High. And the TV show What's Happening is loosely based on Cooley High, because in Cooley High, Preach, played by Glenn Thurman, who goes on to play Colonel Bradford Taylor on A Different World. Glenn Thurman's character of Preach wants to be a writer. Okay. And he also wore the black rim glasses. So Roger Thomas on What's Happening, he wants to be a writer. He also wears the black rim glasses also, like Preach in Cooley High. So they give Florida Evans a husband on Good Times, but they give him a 6th grade education. Now, I don't think you can be a 6th grade education. He was a fireman on Maude who gets a raise at work, and he's making more money, so he wants his wife to start working for the white woman. But when they get their own show, when Florida Evans gets her own show, Esther Rolle, they want her to be a single mother. She puts her foot down and says, "No, I want a black man as my husband." So they said, "Okay, we're gonna give you a black man. Well, we're gonna give him a 6th grade education, and he's gonna have 2 minimum wage jobs, and he's barely gonna be able to afford to pay the subsidized rent in the projects." They give Florida Evans a 10th grade education. And I think it was the 3rd episode, Eviction Day, he has to go get the pool stick out the they didn't even have a closet. They had a drape for what was supposed to be a closet. He has to go hustle to get the rent money so they don't get evicted, the subsidized rent money. And JJ becomes comedian Jimmy Walker becomes the breakout star of the show, but he's portraying a stereotypical character who's ignorant, barely literate. He is a fantastic artist, but this is something that they slip in on the cast. And Eric Monte and Mike Evans, because Mike Evans was the original Lionel on the Jeffersons. So when Good Time starts, Mike Evans leaves Good Time. He leaves the Jeffersons portraying Lionel Jefferson. He goes to work on the set of Good Times full time as a writer and co-creator of Good Times. So then on the Jeffersons, they bring in another actor named Damon Evans, no relation, to be the second Lionel. Then when Good Times ends, about 1979, Michael Evans goes back to the Jeffersons and reprises his role as Lionel Jefferson. I also didn't like how Norman Lear and the other ones, the producers of Jeffersons, had to have Lionel and Jenny get a divorce. Why you can't have young people or younger people in their 20s? You can't have younger black people married? They have to get a divorce? Why? Norman Lear. I remember Cheryl Lee Ralph left the TV show Moesha because she played Brandy's mother, her stepmother, Moesha, on the TV show Moesha. And she leaves after the powers that be of the show wrote into the script that the black father in the show cheated on his wife. And Sheryl Lee Ralph didn't like that. She said this was a good show. You had a good black family. You had a black father. Why'd you have to write infidelity into the script and ruin the show? If I've done a lecture series called The Media's Deliberate Destruction of the African American Family. And we deal with like the history of media and TV shows, things like this. And I interviewed Bernadette Stannis twice on the African History Network show, who plays Thelma Evans. So I did a lot of research preparing for my interview with her also. And this is one of the books that was part of my research for my lecture series and my interview as well with Bernadette Stannis. Blacks in American Films and Television by an illustrated encyclopedia by Donald Bogle. Okay, Blacks in American Films and Television. Okay, an illustrated encyclopedia by Donald Bogle. So all the movies and TV shows that had like a significant African American character up until maybe about 1987, 88, because this book came out in 1988, they have an entry. They have an encyclopedic entry of it here. And they have one for Good Times. So it's broken up between TV and movies. Okay. So they have one here for Good Times. It's in alphabetical order. So they have one here for the Jeffersons, January 18th, 1975 to June 23rd, 1985. So they have one here for the Jeffersons. The crazy thing about the Jeffersons is that when the show was canceled, they didn't tell the cast, really. I remember, if I remember correctly, Mips said she learned that the show was canceled after 10 seasons by reading about it in the newspaper. And even the unsung Hollywood edition of TV One that they did on the Jeffersons, they talk about that there as well. The Jeffersons was on for 10 years. CBS, the producers, they did not give them a finale show. They did not give them a wrap-up show. Basically, they did not tell the cast that the show was canceled. They read about it in the newspaper. Just total disrespect. Just total disrespect. Landmark TV show like that. But they have an entry here for Good Times. I'm just going to share an excerpt with you because we have to get out of here. How's everybody doing? Also, if you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. And we have the information on the homepage of our website. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, cover expenses when I got to travel out of town, etc., like I had to do to Washington, D.C. If you look at this entry here for Good Times, this is page 275 and 276 of Blacks in American Films and Television. So they have the entry here for Good Times. Okay. Also, Give Me a Break is on there also. Nell Carter, Give Me a Break. Unfortunately, a stereotypical role taking care of a white family. So Good Times aired February 8th, 1974 to August 1st, 1979. Aired on CBS, created by Eric Monty and Michael Evans, developed by Norman Lear. Look at this right here. Developed by Norman Lear. Okay, I don't know if you can see this. This book is coming apart. Developed by Norman Lear. Okay. want you to see all this here. All right. CBS, created by Eric Monty and Michael Evans, developed by Norman Lear. So Norman Lear is the one that fired the black father, John Amos. Because Norman Lear said that a black father on a sitcom is not funny. Now, we like John Amos. So, Norman Lear, what gives you the authority to determine for black people what is funny? I just find that very interesting. Let me go back to the picture here. I just find that very interesting. And this is something that Eric Monty said. Eric Monty, so I did a lot of research when I was preparing for my interview with Bernadette Stannis, and also for my lecture series, The Media's Deliberate Destruction of the African American Family. I did a lot of research on different shows, on Good Times, researched Eric Monty. Eric Monty said that Norman Lear kept telling him, you have to get rid of that black father. You have to get rid of that black father. He said a black father on a sitcom is not funny. Okay. Now, Archie Bunker on All in the Family was funny. He's white. Why can't you have a black father that's funny also? He doesn't have to be a clown. You know, John Amos was funny, but he wasn't a clown. You don't have to be a clown to be funny. Here's an excerpt of what the entry says by Donald Bogle. This half-hour weekly series about the problems and joys of the Evans family was the 1970s first family sitcom and has been considered something of a groundbreaker, which it was. This was the first depiction really of an African-American family we saw each week. Okay. Clearly, it can be credited with having introduced to national TV a new point of view of African-American life. The series offered a portrait of an African-American family living in the slums, a tenement building on Chicago's South Side that is referred to as cockroach towers, quote unquote. Cockroach towers, and confronted daily with a set of harsh urban realities. Good Times focused on Florida Evans, who played Esther Rolle, who first appeared as the maid on Maude. Her husband, James, played by John Amos, and their three children, JJ or Junior, portrayed by Jimmy Walker, comedian Jimmy Walker, Thelma, played by Bernadette Stannis, and Michael, played by Ralph Carter. As the father searched for a better job, unemployment was a recurring theme. Discrimination and poverty were also dealt with. Disgruntled and angered by his economic plight, the father, James, announced in one episode, the president said he was going to bring us all together, but no one told us it would be on a bread line. So if I remember correctly, he's referring to President Gerald Ford after Nixon resigned from office. After Nixon resigned in August of 1974. He's referring to President Gerald Ford. Okay, now, weekly, the show's theme song spoke of temporary layoffs and easy credit ripoffs and keeping your head above the water, making the wave when you can. Temporary layoffs, okay? Also, it says hanging in a chow line, C-H-O-W, not hanging in a jiving. It's hanging in a chow line, like a food line, a bread line. Good Times managed to touch on some of the language, the rhythms, and attitudes of ghetto experience, seen at one point in some 18 million homes. The series seemed to elicit viewer identification from African Americans and whites alike, who saw the struggle for economic and social survival of the Evans family as being part of their own. Always stressed, however, was the theme of America as a land of opportunity. There was also a lot of love in the home. James and Florida Evans, they had a lot of love for their children, so there's a lot of love in the family, but they also stressed education. They stressed education for their children. They stressed that they wanted a life better for their children, and they were willing to sacrifice to have a life better for their children as well. So we saw an emphasis on going to college. We saw an emphasis on, going into careers. Thelma to be a doctor. She dabbles with writing a script for a play as well. We see Michael go to college. Michael wants to be an attorney. He wants to be a Supreme Court justice like Thurgood Marshall. So we see these themes in the show, which really helps to pave the way for a Cosby Show in 1984, because with the Cosby Show, you see the actualization of some of the dreams that Florida and John Amos had for their children in the projects. So we see Claire Huxtable, who's an attorney, who college graduate from Hillman College. She's an attorney. We see Heathcliff Huxtable, who is a doctor, graduates from Hillman College, fictitious college, Hillman College as well. They're married. So the dreams that we see Florida and James have for their children, Michael being an attorney, Thelma being a doctor, we see the actualization of that with the Cosby Show. And then they have their own children, and they want something better for their children than what they have. But their children grow up in a middle-class neighborhood, so their children don't have the same drive that the civil rights generation had. Their children don't have the same drive and determination. Eventually Theo gets his act together, things like this. Eventually Lisa Bonet, her character, Denise, she goes back to college, Medgar Evers College, okay? But they don't have the same drive and determination that their parents had, that civil rights generation. Okay, so seen at one point in some 18 million homes, the series seemed to elicit viewer identification from blacks and whites alike who saw the struggle for economic and social survival of the Evans families being part of their own. Also, the TV show The Jeffersons paves the way for the Cosby Show, because we see an upwardly mobile married couple with the Jeffersons moving to a deluxe apartment in the sky. And incidentally, the theme song for the Jeffersons was written by Janae Dubois, who played Walona Woods on Good Times. Okay. Fish don't fry in the kitchen, beans don't burn on the grill. A whole lot of trying just to get up that hill. Now we're up in the big leagues, getting that turn that bat. Okay. As long as we're living as you and me, baby, ain't nothing wrong with that. So that's Janae Dubois. Now, Janae Dubois and Esther Rolle were sorority sisters in Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated also. This is a little known African-American history fact. Now, always stressed, however, was the theme of America, a land of opportunity. And in some cases, white viewers were permitted to patronize in some, hold on just a second. Okay. All right. We're back. We had a clip playing. Okay, now viewed today, the series seems very much a period piece with its shortcomings more than apparent. Too much of its political stand, its determination to confront social problems and ills, strikes us as merely rhetorical. The most biting comments usually coming from the youngest and therefore least threatening son, Michael. Okay, y'all should be able to hear me now. The youngest and least threatening son, Michael, who they called the militant midget when he was younger, but as he grows older and goes to college and becomes more threatening, they stop calling him militant. Notice that he's called the militant midget when he's younger, okay? And he's smarter than JJ. And Michael studies Black history, and he's into Black pride and things like this, okay? There's an episode where he talks about Black History Week or Negro History Week. There's an episode where he talks about the Nation of Islam newspaper. Muhammad, I think he refers to it as Muhammad Speaks. Okay, so you get all this coming from Michael, not JJ. So Michael, who studiously keeps himself abreast of Black history and achievements, and who writes my favorite person school essays on Malcolm X and Jesse Jackson. Had the older Evans children been blessed with more serious attitudes or insights, the series might have really attained the socially committed, quote unquote, socially committed goals it wanted us to believe it sought. Instead, poor Thelma was used for the most part as a backdrop for jokes or for showcasing the problems of other family members. Worst was the fact that the oldest Evans child, JJ, seemed barely literate. Repeatedly, the audience was reminded that JJ was an artist and supposedly talented young Black man trying to find a way, but Jimmy JJ Walker failed to communicate any type of artistic intensity or perceptivity, let alone something as fundamental as intelligence. What he became best known for was his trademark expression, dynamite, and his coon antics, Donald Bogle's term, not mine, quote unquote, coon antics, which were throwbacks to Step and Fetch It and Willie Best, but without any of the former's nihilistic poise or the latter's slyly acute sense of timing. Perhaps the most telling comments on JJ were made by Esther Rolle to Ebony Magazine. Now, this is Esther Rolle, who plays Florida Evans, who knows more about this basically than anybody else. And this is what she had to say about Jimmy J.J. Walker. About Junior, James Evans Jr., JJ, okay? I don't think she's attacking Jimmy J.J. Walker. She talks about the change in his character and how the TV show started out being and what it ended up being. Esther Rolle said, quote, "I resent the imagery that says to Black kids that you can make it by standing on the corner saying dynamite. He's 18 years old, and he doesn't work. They do give him a job at the chicken shack, the chicken delivery place. And then at one point, he's working as an usher at the theater. He's 18 years old, and he doesn't work. He can't read or write. He doesn't think. The show did not start out to be that. The show did not start out to be that. Little by little, they have made JJ more stupid and enlarged the role. So they gave him more airtime. Is this because this becomes a huge hit? Okay. At one point seen in 18 million homes. That's unthinkable today. Most TV shows today are not seen in 18 million homes. And then there was they had the Good Times trading cards, like Topps baseball cards. They had the Good Times trading cards. Also, Jimmy J.J. Walker had his own dial, the J.J. dial, and it was because I had one when I was a kid. They had a stuffed dial, and they had the J.J. Walker dial, had his hat, everything, and they had a cord that you pulled in his back, and it said it had recorded messages of J.J. Walker. Okay, and one of them was Dynamite, and I don't remember the other ones that they said. But I remember Dynamite because I had the dial when I was a kid, right? So Esther Rolle goes on to say, negative images have been quietly slipped in on us through the character of the oldest child. And she talked about how that's not how the show was originally supposed to be. That's not how the show started out, but this is how it ends up. Okay. And as he becomes a fan favorite and people wait for him to say Dynamite each episode, he becomes really popular. He gets more screen time. Okay, so read the rest of this here, page 275 and 276 of this book here, Blacks in American Films and Television, an illustrated encyclopedia by Donald Bogle. Okay, you got Red Fox right here. You have Eddie Murphy, Beverly Hills Cop, all of that. So fantastic. That's out of print. I don't even take that out the house anymore. That thing's out of print. Hotep, everybody. This is Michael Imhotep from the African History Network. Our Black Empowerment Friday weekend sale is on right now. We have a fantastic promotion for you. Get our bundle pack of 2 online history courses that I teach, as well as my 15 lecture downloadable bundle, African History Awakens the African Mind from Mental Death. These are both from me, Michael Imhotep. They're on sale right now for only $100. That's 76% off. My first online history class is Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Kemet is one of the original names for Egypt. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles. There's about 100 articles that we cover in the class, over 200 slides that I put together as well. And there are also video clips, including excerpts of interviews I've done with some of our historians and scholars, as well as Renoka Rashidi, Professor James Small, Anthony Browder, Professor Kabahaya Watha Kamene, and Dr. David Imhotep. In the second class that I teach, it's called Black Resistance Movements from the Haitian Revolution, the U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement, 1800 to 1968. And we dig in deep and look at history chronologically from 1800 to 1968 and look at what leads to the Civil War taking place. We study the Jim Crow era, the Reconstruction era, 1865 to 1877, World War I, World War II, Civil Rights Movement, Black Power Movement, and the Great Migration, 1915 and 1970, to understand what happened to us after slavery ended, what were the laws and policies put in place to put us where we are today, to understand where we need to go from here. I created both of these classes, created the curriculum, chose the content as well. This sale has been extended to Sunday, December 10th, 2023. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You'll see the promotion at the top of the page. As soon as you register, you can start watching the content. You can join us for our next online class live Saturday, December 2nd, 2023, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can watch all of these classes on demand, and even after the course is over with, you don't lose access. Register right now, order right now, visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. This sale has been extended to Sunday, December 10th, 2023. Also, if you'd like to stop for information, you can support the African History Network, $, the AHN Show through Cash App, $, the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills. All right, we have to get out of here. Remember, right now it's correct wrong behavior is not over till we win.